friends. Today we are painting some more miniatures from the Dominion box set. Today we're painting the Castigators unit, going for a cool color scheme, but I'm also here creeping on myminifactory looking for some more units to add that have a similar flavor so that my army is unique. We have this cool different kind of design from the artist Gamak from myminifactory. I'm gonna print a bunch of those boys and I'm gonna add them to the unit. Now, even though this is not part of the Dominion box set, I did just find these units very cool. I was intrigued by them, so I bought a few on eBay to add to my army. Castigators are pretty cool looking. They're basically the kind of like mini artillery of the Stormcast Eternals. Their specific kind of niche in armies is they're really good against ethereal and undead units. There's a really cool part of the lore where they talk about the bows that the Castigators use. Now, the Castigators actually have their weapons infused by dragon fire, and that's what gives them their power. Now, for these units, I'm leaning into the scheme from last week's video where we painted the Annihilators, and we went with this sort of blue armor. And for these guys, I'm thinking more of a green armor, and I want them to almost appear like a camouflage, but like high fantasy camouflage. So I'm starting with just a really cheap green craft paint, and I've covered all the units, and now I'm moving on to this Vallejo turquoise, which I shake really well, obviously, and we're going to put a little bit of that on the palette and dilute it, and I'm going to get a paper towel, and I'm going to use kind of a raggedy brush, and I'm going to dry brush over that green. So that dark green is going to act as my shadows, and the turquoise is going to act as the highlight as I dry brush it downward onto the raised surfaces of each model. And here you see one of these models from Gamak that I 3D printed, and these are so cool. They have this kind of Spartan ancient Greek warrior kind of vibe, and they still have that, a lot of them have the Balthazar Gelt type face masks, and they also, you can print the bodies separate from the heads, so you can use the heads on your Stormcast Eternals if you wanted to maybe get rid of all the Games Workshop heads and put in your own of like the Spartan mask. I didn't really do that, but what I did do was I printed a couple extra of these little owl boys, and I put the owl boy 3D printed and just super glued him onto the shoulder of, I guess, that guy who looks like the leader. He's leaning on that thing hard there, and I thought that was kind of a cool little addition. So now I'm taking a cheap blue craft paint here, and I think I've mixed it with just a little bit of white. A lot of those cheap craft paints are just a little bit opaque, and you can kind of like thicken them up a little bit with a high quality white. So now I'm hitting the crossbows with the blue, and I'm loving the juxtaposition on there. And these guys are different, but they're still going to fit in with the color scheme that we've done for the Annihilators. And I want to continue that trend as we post more videos in the future, as I try to complete the box set here, as well as the stuff that I 3D printed. Um, if anybody is curious, for those who's watching, for 3D printers I have a Anycubic Photon and a Frozen Sonic Mini. And I actually upgraded the Anycubic Photon because I have that since 2018 and printed like an ungodly amount of models from that machine. And that was kind of like one of the original 3D printers that kind of became affordable. A lot of people has those. Kind of came out the same time as the Elegumars, which was really popular at the same time. And that thing was supposed to only work for, like they say, 2,000 hours. My Anycubic, now my machine probably worked for about twice as long as that. So shout outs to Anycubic. And so now I've upgraded that machine, put in a 4K screen on it, but I'm still primarily using the Frozen Sonic Mini now because those 4K are just fast. And the Frozen Sonic Mini was only, I think, $120 currently. So that thing is gone now because now they have all these 8K printers and all this stuff. But I'm like under the opinion that you don't really need something like that. I just want some models to slap some paint on them, get them on the table. I don't try to say that I'm a professional painter by any means, but I like to just get them good enough. So now back to the models. I've picked out a couple parts, like the owl, some of the armor pieces, painted those red. I've done a little bit of highlighting with a lighter blue on the bows, and now I'm doing a little bit of highlight dry brush on the armor. Now originally when I was planning the paint scheme for these models, I was going to go with the slap chop, so popular on the painting YouTube videos these days, but I just felt like this was the way to go. Still love the slap chop, but I wanted to kind of do something simple, lean into it a little bit. So we're going over the green, we're using this light turquoise, and I'm loving the contrast between that green and the turquoise. Even though they're very similar, there's a great contrast happening. So now I've taken a neon yellow from Vallejo, and I'm sort of creating this glow with a dry brush. And I'm creating the glow from the base stones glowing upward onto the armor and onto the boots. And you can see here the effect. And it's just a dry brush. I've wiped most of the paint off of the brush, just hitting those raised surfaces in that little spot. And it's creating this cool kind of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles glow here on these guys, which I dig. As a child of the 90s, I love these colors together. I like to do bolder and bolder paint schemes as I go along. Sure, I think it would be fun to paint the army in the actual metal, slap some metal on there, slap a wash over the metallic paint. But I think it's fun to try things that are different, and I think that we grow as painters. Oh, somebody's ripping it up in the back here. Sorry about that, guys. To grow as a painter is to try new stuff. So now I've taken blue speed paint here from Army Painter. I've diluted it with a little bit of water, and I'm using it as a wash to put some details into the recesses of this like sweet bow. The dragon fire infused bow of the Castigators. And I like to do that a little bit with the speed paints because I think that they are just so versatile. I'm loving that product from Army Painter. Um, there is a version 2.0 of the Army Painter speed paints coming out, and I'm looking forward to that. Love those speed paints. Love them. So I'm taking these Vallejo colors, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of this kind of light brown, tannish type color, a little bit of white, putting it into the wet palette here. And we're just basically pushing this little glow further. So now I'm trying to pick out some little details. I'm not dry brushing here. I'm actually putting some paint, decent amount of paint on the brush, and I'm gonna kind of glaze the raised surfaces here. And I'm gonna try to make the glow a little bit more accentuated. We're doing sort of a poor man's object source lighting here. Having fun with it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Stormcast. And I think too that you can take this scheme and not recreate it exactly. I think the fun part here is to maybe just try to think about this scheme as the contrast between the warm and cold colors, where as long as you kind of recreate that contrast, whatever colors you choose are going to look decent on your model. And I think too that it's good to just paint one of them first so that you can make sure that it works before you dedicate all that time. Alright, so now some more of these nice Vallejo model colors here, more of that turquoise, more of that white into the wet palette here, and now we're going to work on the details of the armor. And this is going to be real simple here. We're just going to kind of create some gradients with the turquoise and the white, and we're going to build up those gradients on the raised points of the armor where we've painted turquoise. We still have that dark green as our shadow, and we're going to just kind of keep working on the highlights. Now you could take this as far as you really want to, but I'm under the impression that a couple layers is enough for us to see it from where we're looking at the models. You got to think about how you're playing with the models. You know, you're looking from a few feet away, so it's not like you're staring at them like you are when you're painting them, so they just kind of need to be decent, in my opinion. So that's pretty much all we're gonna do for those boys. We're even gonna leave the faces still green to kind of lean into that camouflage thing, as if these Stormcast have like painted their faces for battle. And we're also gonna leave the red as is. We don't want too much orange in there. Tried it and it didn't look bad, but hope you enjoyed this. We're gonna keep going with a lot of these painting tutorials, and there's gonna be a lot of stuff on the channel coming up. So thanks for watching and enjoy.